Welcome back, everybody. This is King's Playroom, and today we're not doing gameplay, which is what I normally do. But the last video I did with Blue Black Flash, mostly rogues, um, I was requested to show a deck list, so that's what I thought I'd be doing today. So I'm going to go in depth on the list I use for my Blue Black Flash deck. We're going to start out with 4 copies of the Zulaport Duelist. It's a 1/1 for 1 with Flash. But when it enters, target creature gets -2, -0, and they mill 2 cards, which you want them to have 8 cards in their graveyard. So it helps with that. It gives you some combat shenanigans also. They say they're playing mono red and they drop a fervent champion on their turn 1 and you have a blue, you can go, okay, I'm going to make it a -1/1 and then I'm going to kill it with this Zulaport Duelist. And it's just kind of cool. And it's a chump blocker if need be. Then we got 4 copies of the Thieves Guild Enforcer. Just when it or another rogue enters, they mill 2, which helps get to 8. When an opponent has 8 or more, it gets +2/+1, makes it a 3/2 for 1. It also has flash. These are your beaters, early game beaters, and decent blockers for late game. Because it also gives it death touch when it has +3 or +2/+1. So it turns into a decent blocker in late game, but at early game, it's one of your beaters. And we got 3 copies of Fairy Vandal. It's a flash flying 1/2 for 2. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, put a 1/1 counter on Fairy Vandal, and you're able to draw multiple cards on both your turn and your opponent's turn. So this can get 1/1 counters very quickly, and it's a flyer. This deck does have a lot of flyers, so you can swing over your opponents, hopefully, and that's usually how you win, is swinging over them with flyers and your Slither Wisp damage. Also a rogue, so it triggers the Thieves Guild Enforcer. Then we have 4 copies of Omen of the Sea. Now, when it enters, you scry 2 and draw a card, so great for a 2-drop with flash. You can also pay 3, 2 and a blue to sack it to scry 2 afterwards. So, it lets you scry, draw a card, which can trigger your Fairy Vandal. It has flash, so it can trigger Slither Wisp. And it just helps you get rid of the dud cards if you don't need them. Like if you're going up against control, you probably don't want a Heartless Act. Or if you're going up against, I don't know, whatever you might need, you can scry it to the top or scry it to the bottom, whatever. Then we got 3 copies of Heartless Act to get rid of some of those pesky creatures like Questing Beast and etc. that are floating around. Or you can use it to remove 3 counters from a creature, like the Serpent, the Stone Coil Serpent, I believe. It has protection from multicolored, which is a lot of your deck. And if it only has 1, 2, or 3 counters, you can use this to make it a 0/0 and get rid of it. Because it also has reach. So it kind of gives you some variety there. Then we have 4 copies of Cunning Nightbonder. It's a 2/2 for 2 with flash. It's a rogue. It triggers the Thieves Guild Enforcer. But the most important part is spells with flash you cast cost 1 less, which might not seem that bad or that good. But they also can't be countered. And if you're going up against control, that's great. So that's why we're running 4. Because you want to get this down, especially against control. It makes your Fairy Vandal cost 1, your Omen of the Sea cost 1, your Brazen Borrower costs 2. It kind of helps out a little bit. And then we got 4 copies of Drown in the Loch. I mean, we're milling anyway, so this allows us to counter a target spell with converted mana cost equal or less than the number of cards in their graveyard, or destroy a creature with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of cards in their graveyard. So it's kind of versatile there. You can counter a problematic spell like an ultimatum, or you can kill a very problematic creature. So that's why it's in there for versatility. Then we have 4 copies of Soaring Thought Thief. It's also a rogue. I think all the creatures I've named have been rogues. Yep, they have. But it's a 2-drop flash flying 1/3 as long as an opponent has 8 or more cards. rogues you control get +1/+0. So it buffs your rogues. Whenever one or more rogues attack, they mill 2 cards, so it kind of helps you get their 8 cards in their grave. And did I say it triggers the thieves? If not, then it triggers the thieves. If I did, well, then you hear it twice. But it's very good to have a Thieves Guild on turn 1, or their turn 1, because you mostly want to play during their turn. And then a turn 2 Soaring would be great, or Nightbonder, either way. Then we have 2 copies of Brazen Borrower. I might want to pop this up to 3 and drop an Omen, but I only have 2, so that's why the deck runs 2. It's a fairy rogue, so it's a rogue like all the other creatures. It's a 3/1 flash flying for 3, and you can petty theft for the adventure part to return a permanent an opponent controls to its owner's hand, non-land permanent. So you can bounce a problematic thing so you can counter it on the next turn or whatever you need to. And it's a 3/1 beater in the air. If they don't have any flying, you can swing at them for 3 every turn, maybe 4 if you have a soaring. Well, it'd be more than 4 from him and 2 from him if you have a soaring. So it turns into a clock they have to get around. Because it can't block, so you might as well swing with it every turn. Then we have 4 copies of Slitherwisp. Now this is the main part of the deck. This is what makes the deck run. It's a 3/2 for 3, 2 black and a blue with flash. And whenever you cast another spell that has flash, you draw a card and each opponent loses a life. This is the only non-rogue in the deck, and it just makes the deck go round. If you're not starting with one of these in your hand, it's going to be a little tougher for you. I mean, not impossible, because rogues are fairly decent anyway. But ideally, you want to start with one of these, at least one in your hand. And the drainage is going to help you with the flyers to knock them down to 0. And you keep your hand full. You play a rogue, you draw a card. Play a omen, you draw a card. They just replace themselves. And with Nightbonder, they can't be countered, so they're going to land. And if you're paying 1 for a lot of these, then you pay 1 mana. It's basically play mana, get a body, draw a card, and drain them for 1. And that's amazing value. And then we have 7 islands, 7 swamps, 4 clear water pathways, 2 Temple of Deceits. I would like to do 4, but I only have 2, so we're doing 2. I would drop the islands and the swamps down to 6 each, and then run 4 temples, and 4 Fabled Passage, because Fabled Passage is just good. But yeah, that's my in-depth look at my Flash deck. Now, I already mentioned what I would change, so that's about it. If you guys have any suggestions, let me know in the comments. If you like the video, click that like button and subscribe because it's free. It helps out the channel, and I really appreciate it. Thank you. I'll see you guys in the next one.